Most people live chained to invisible eyes. Every choice, every word, every pause, quietly weighed against a single question. What will they think? Not because they're weak, not because they lack confidence, but because they were trained that way. From the first time you were corrected, laughed at, or rewarded for fitting in, your brain learned a rule. Approval equals safety, so you adapted, you adjusted. You learned when to speak, when to stay quiet, when to agree even when something felt off. And slowly, without noticing, you stopped acting from instinct and started performing. That isn't personality, that's programming. Welcome to DarkMind Academy. This channel isn't about motivation. It's about understanding the invisible forces that run your mind when you're not paying attention. You can feel this programming every time you hesitate before speaking your truth. Every time you soften an opinion, every time you explain yourself longer than necessary. Not to be understood, but to be accepted. And the most dangerous part? It feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels like the right thing to do. But dark confidence doesn't beg for approval. It doesn't negotiate for validation. It erases the need for it. Not by being loud, not by dominating rooms, but by quietly disconnecting from the emotional leash most people don't even realize they're wearing. The trick isn't confidence the way it's sold to you. The trick is changing how you relate to other people's opinions entirely. Treat opinions like smoke. They look solid from a distance. They move fast. They sting when they hit your eyes. But the moment you stop chasing them, they dissolve. Most people never realize this because they never stop running. They spend their lives adjusting, explaining, defending, justifying, trying to control something that was never solid to begin with. Here's where the shift actually begins. You don't start by not caring. That's a lie people repeat because it sounds strong. You start by doing the opposite. You lean into the fear. You visualize the worst judgment. Not vaguely, not abstractly. You picture them laughing, judging, losing respect, walking away. You let your body feel it. The tight chest, the heat, the urge to fix things immediately. And then you do what almost no one does. You stay. You don't distract yourself. You don't explain. You don't retreat. You wait. And something unsettling happens. Nothing happens. The world keeps moving. People shift attention. Life continues as if your fear never mattered. That moment is where the illusion cracks. Their judgment was never power. It was anticipation. Fear borrowed authority from imagination. Once you see that, you can't unsee it. Now step 2 becomes possible. You flip the frame. Disapproval stops being a threat and starts becoming information. Every group runs on scripts, unspoken rules, expected reactions, approved identities. Most people stay inside those scripts forever and call it belonging. But the moment you don't rush to explain yourself, the moment you don't mirror energy, the moment you don't shrink to keep others comfortable, you step outside the script. And that creates tension, not because you're wrong, but because you're unpredictable. The herd doesn't fear aggression. It fears the one it can't immediately categorize. That's why independence gets labeled cold, why detachment gets mistaken for arrogance, why silence makes people uneasy. Not because it's wrong, but because it can't be easily controlled. And this is where most people sabotage themselves. They feel the tension and rush to soothe it. They over-explain. They joke. They fill silence like it's a mistake. So here's the third shift. You starve the loop. Validation only survives when it's fed. Every time you rush to clarify, you reinforce the idea that other people's reactions matter more than your internal alignment. So when the urge rises, and it will, pause. Don't react immediately. Don't defend. Don't correct. Just notice the impulse. Smile inwardly. Let the silence stretch. If you're still with me, this is the point where things start to change. So if this resonates, pause for a second and subscribe to DarkMind Academy. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, because something fascinating happens when you stop feeding the loop. People begin adjusting to you. They fill the silence themselves, they explain their reactions, they reveal insecurity trying to regain control. Silence doesn't argue, It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't justify. Silence lets other people project. And projection is information. This isn't arrogance. It's surgery. You're cutting the cord to their validation. And when you do, something unexpected happens. You don't just feel freer. You feel heavier, grounded, less reactive, more deliberate. Others feel it too. They'll call it cold, detached, unapproachable. But what they're really sensing is a lack of access. You're no longer emotionally available for manipulation. Now here's the part most advice never reaches. Detachment is only phase one, because there's a second layer, one that explains something you've probably noticed before. Why silence attracts attention. Why the moment you stop chasing approval, people start watching. The human mind is wired for resolution, completion, patterns. Predictability relaxes the brain. Availability dulls interest. But containment, real containment, creates tension. When someone is self-sufficient, when they don't broadcast their internal state, the mind leans in, not out of love, out of curiosity, out of unfinished business. This is why delayed responses feel heavier than instant ones. Why absence can be louder than presence. Why the quiet person in the room gets checked on. It isn't magic, it's gravity created by restraint. And when this restraint comes from genuine inner stability, not performance, not strategy, you become psychologically expensive. Harder to access, harder to read, harder to replace. That's the reversal. You stop reacting to the world starts adjusting to you. But understand this clearly. The moment this becomes an act, it collapses. Real detachment isn't strategic, it's structural. It comes from knowing you'll be fine without the response. That's why this is about ruling your own mind first. When you stop performing, you stop leaking energy. When you stop leaking energy, presence sharpens. When presence sharpens, people feel it without knowing why. The paradox is simple. The less you try to be seen, the more noticeable you become. The less you chase attention, the heavier your silence feels. That's where silence stops being defensive and starts being magnetic. If you want the deeper mechanics, how this presence forms, how attention reverses, how people start leaning toward what no longer chases them, I break all of that down fully in the next video. So subscribe to DarkMind Academy, watch the long breakdown, and tell me in the comments, have you felt this shift before? Or are you just starting to notice it now? This is where the performance ends and control begins.